Welcome to Curito Connects. I'm your host, Jenn, and I've been conversing with friends around the world about life challenges and impactful moments. Conversations on this platform look at answering the questions how we overcome challenges and how our experiences shape who we are and the work we do today. I hope this work can inspire you on your own personal and individual journey. Let's dive right in. Hello, my guest today is Colorado-based Hannah Ritchie and Kait Tomkosky, founders of Together, a company whose mission is to help others experience life with more consciousness, particularly those in the music scene, through the magic of meditation and ceremonial grade cacao. Hi, Hannah and Kait, and welcome to Curito Connects.
Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Thanks. We're excited to be here.
Fun fact, I first connected with Hannah and Kait through our Keats Cacao ceremony certification last year, and today is also my first time hosting two guests at the same time on Curito Connects. I'm very excited to talk to you both about your own personal journeys, how you met, and how Together was created in 2022 after leading your first cacao ceremony for musicians before they start their concerts. So without further ado, I'll have Hannah and Kait introduce themselves to our audience, but also we will do a little mini version of a cacao ceremony opening before we dive into our conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. I'm Kate. I live in Fort Collins, Colorado. Yeah, and kind of like you alluded to, I'm a lover of cacao, lover of live music. Yeah, and just love enjoying the nature in Colorado as well.
And I'm Hannah. I live in Evergreen, Colorado. Yeah, pretty much ditto to what Kate said. I love cacao, love meditation, love Colorado. Yeah, and we're excited to share these things with you and talk about kind of our story and do a little cacao ceremony in the beginning.
Great. So should we just go ahead and start? And for those who are listening to this episode and don't know what cacao ceremony is, could one of you kind of give us like a cliff note version? We'll dive deeper into it in the conversation, but kind of introduce to people what cacao is before, and then we can do an opening with we all have our cacaos in our hands, and what we're gonna do.
Yes, so cacao is it's a non-psychedelic plant medicine. And so it's similar to caffeine, like the main bioactive compound is theobromine. So you can think of, so caffeine is like a central nervous system stimulant. So you feel like really buzzy in your head, like really energized in your head, whereas theobromine is a cardiovascular stimulant. So you feel like really heart opened. And I think that's really the main thing that we feel with cacao is that we feel, really grounded, really open in our hearts. Yeah, Kate, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I guess I'll just quickly add that cacao is a plant medicine. There's said to be a spirit of cacao. So even if you don't have cacao with you today, that's okay. You can just sit and just take a deep breath or sip on your water or whatever it is. You can feel the effects. Yeah, so it's just a gentle, loving spirit. And yeah, just don't think we're crazy if we refer to it as mama or she.
I think that's a very good way to summarize it, and I'm very excited for our audience to hear more about it and its benefits and how you guys came about to creating together. So yes, should we go ahead and begin?
Yeah, so if you
Yeah,
have your
let's do it.
cacao, you can just set it kind of nearby, and we'll just kind of take a minute to drop in with a super quick meditation, and then we'll cue when to take our first sip of cacao together. So if you want to find a comfy seat and maybe just wiggle around a little bit to settle in. And if they aren't already closed, you can go ahead and close your eyes. And just place your hands either palms up or palms down in your lap. And just take a moment to turn your attention and your senses inward. So maybe bringing your awareness to the breath. Just noticing your inhales and your exhales. And when you're ready, you can follow your next inhale in through your nose, down your throat and into your heart center. And keep your awareness on your heart as the breath flows back out. And just take a few moments to really breathe into this space, expanding your heart with each inhale and letting yourself relax deeper into it with each exhale. So inhale, expanding, and exhale, relaxing. And when you feel ready, you can gently open your eyes to pick up your cup of cacao, and then press it to your heart center, feeling its warmth there. And you can close back down your eyes.
And now I just invite you to take a moment to feel into a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for this moment, to be here, to drop in. Gratitude for whatever good surrounds you in your life. Gratitude for the beautiful cacao plant, for Mama Cacao. And gratitude to all of those who have worked with cacao before us. The Maya Chinchipe, the Olmec, the Toltec, the Maya, and the Aztec, and all of those whose names we do not yet know. And finally, feeling a sense of gratitude for yourself, for being here in this moment with a sense of openness and curiosity. And with this sense of gratitude, we can take our first sip of cacao together. Now I encourage you to really savor that first sip, just noticing its taste, its texture, maybe feeling as it makes its way down into your heart. Mama Cacao, we ask that you help us to be heart-centered and present as we spend this time together and as we move throughout our days. May you help us to be open and curious, and to be open to feel your magic and the magic that surrounds us. May we feel your loving support. May we feel the bliss that you offer us, and may we feel our hearts open up. And with a sense of openness, we can take our second sip of cacao together. And now I just invite you to take a moment to get clear on your personal intention for working with cacao today. So it could be how you would like to feel, something that you're calling into your life, something that you're going through that you need support with. Just taking a moment to let your own intention bubble up from within. And when you feel clear, you can imagine literally placing your intention into your cup of cacao, handing it over to Mama Cacao, and trusting that it's no longer in your hands. And when you feel complete with that process, you can take your next sip of cacao at your own pace. And with that, our mini ceremony can be complete.
Oh, thank you for that. That was, I feel very calm now.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so now we dive back into our conversation. I guess you guys can decide who wants to go first. But so the question I wanted to ask is, could you share with us your early beginnings, like what you guys studied growing up, and what were you doing professionally prior to deciding to collaborate, working on this as a business?
Yeah, so we both actually went to school in West Virginia. It's where we met. We met on our first day of college. And I started out my college years going for pharmacy, but I changed and went for management information systems. So out of school, I worked as an application consultant doing like development and requirements gathering and all kinds of technical stuff. Yeah, from there I transitioned into doing freelance website design and development, which I still do part-time. But yeah, I think Hannah and I both always had like a longing to do work that felt a bit more meaningful, a bit more purposeful, and like something that we we're more passionate about. So we were kind of always searching for whatever that thing would be. Yeah, and just kind of fell into cacao and meditation and all of that.
Mm. And Hannah?
Yeah, so like Kate said, I also went to West Virginia. I was like always so fascinated by the brain. So I majored in philosophy and psychology, and then I went to grad school. I actually did my PhD in neuroscience in Colorado. And I did sleep research all through undergrad and grad school. I was just like so fascinated with really anything with the brain. And then I fell in love with sleep. So I kind of focused on the sleeping brain, I guess. But I don't know, I didn't want to be glued to like a lab, and I didn't want to just have all the restrictions that kind of came with going into academia. So after I graduated from grad school, I became a medical writer. Which I still do part-time as well. So I write like all the publications that get published in scientific journals for sleep medication. So I'm still working in the sleep field. but I'm able to, work from home, so I can move into the mountains, I can travel, and it's a lot more flexible so that I can still, um, yeah, do like cacao and meditation stuff in my own time.
Wow, so fascinating. You're an expert in sleep. So can you share with us all the books and all the, like you said, publications that talk about sleep? Is that true, right? Like we really should sleep more routinely. We should go to bed before midnight, stick with the circadian rhythm. Is that all accurate?
Yeah, yeah, it is all accurate. I'm like such a baby about my sleep. I'm like in bed by 9 or 10 p.m. like every night. I always get at least 8 hours. Yeah, I don't know how people function who like don't do that. It blows my mind.
But so you guys work with musicians and artists. This is a community who are very free spirited, and the sleep pattern they have is not so according to the doctor, the sleep doctor. I don't know if your friends call you that, but right, it's not it's not like a 9 to 5 or 10 to 6. But they still seem to function okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, we're like, the dorks who go back to our hotel and go to sleep immediately after a show. Um, so I don't know if, yeah, I know that's not the norm though in that scene.
Have you worked with people or in your research paper in terms of people who have trouble sleeping and what you help guide them with, like to help
I
them get
so
to
I
bed?
don't Yeah, so I don't work like I don't do like clinical work, so I don't work with patients. I'm more on the like the like research medical side in terms of like communicating the research to other scientists and doctors. So I'm not um yeah, I'm not like working with patients to help guide them in any way, but from my research, I mean, I think the biggest thing to help you to get better sleep is to work on your light exposure. I think that's the one thing that people don't think about when they're trying to improve their sleep. But if you can be really strict with, when you dim your lights or like not getting light after a certain time, like not checking your phone when you wake up in the middle of the night, I think that's like key,
Hmm.
and what people
So
should try before they like go to a medication or something.
yeah, or try moving into the mountains or by the ocean where there's not as much light pollution.
Yeah,
Give it a try
yeah,
for
for
2 weeks
sure.
and see how your sleep improves. Okay, well,
Yeah.
that was a little divergent, the sleep topic. I want to come back to then asking you both. Um, Maybe we can start with Kate. How did your healing or spiritual journey start? Like, was there something in your lifetime thus far? Because we're only, we're still going, but that you experienced, whether it's, I mean, it could be anything, right? Because everyone's experiences are different, but something that really triggered you to dive deeper into meditation or yoga or any sort of modality that you felt helped you find your direction, or you felt more grounded through practicing that. If you could share with us your own journeys.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, it was just in general, like in my early 20s, I just had a sense of like feeling lost, feeling like I could be doing better in life, like dealing with anxiety and things like that, that kind of caused me to go on like an inner journey and searching for tools and practices that would support me. I think ultimately I was like really in a relationship that was really out of alignment that kind of had me in that place. But yeah, that searching and that longing kind of led me to meditation. Yeah, I became an everyday meditator, and yeah, also was just always really fascinated with like holistic health and yeah, just being healthy, living in alignment with nature and everything, which ultimately led me to find ceremonial cacao. And I think cacao is like what really, really transformed me in my journey. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk more about cacao as we go on, but I feel like that really like was a game changer for me and just gave me the space to start to believe in myself and find my confidence and find my true path and like trust that path and make the choices in my life that helped me to be in alignment and yeah, just grow as a person.
And was this during your time in college, like when you guys were in West Virginia studying, or was this post college? When did you guys move back to Colorado after school? And at this point, you were still quite in touch with each other. So I guess your journeys were very in parallel of like sharing what you were experiencing and what worked and introducing different meditation teachers to each other and different modalities to each other. Who or I guess how were you introduced to meditation at the time? Is it because you guys were in an environment where you were exposed to all this, so it was quite the norm, that people would go to, a sound healing circle or like a meditation class, versus not being exposed to this kind of modalities and searching for it. Like I think there's always like a story of how you get encountered into your first yoga class or your first ceremonial cacao experience. Someone invited you or you saw a flyer somewhere and thought, oh, that looks really interesting. What is this? I'm gonna go try because I feel called to. What was your experience?
Yeah, I think for us, like we found yoga in college and that became a practice that stuck with us, but I don't think we were really like fully in this space and we weren't fully surrounded by meditation or sound journeys or cacao or things like that. I do feel like we kind of found those on our own. For me, a curiosity in meditation came just honestly from like listening to a lot of podcasts and people being like, yeah, meditation changed my life. So eventually I was like, okay, I should try it out. And I went on, I had this one trip and I went and I felt so like aligned and amazing. And I got home and was feeling like, I don't know, you know how that feels like to be like, have this amazing travel experience and then to get back to like your normal life. And Hannah sent me a text like that night with this description of a class, and it like described what I was feeling perfectly. Um, and it was a class called Yoga Off the Mat, which basically taught meditation, and it was like or yoga philosophy beyond just like the physical postures of yoga. So it was never actually really about like what that experience I had after travel was. I don't know really where that description came from, but it definitely pulled me in and I was like, yes, let's go. And it became a thing that we would go every single Tuesday and just kind of learned meditation on our own that way and through our teacher there. But yeah, so I feel like we were very much immersed in the music scene and all of these sort of practices and like spiritual practices or wellness things are just not the norm. So yeah, it kind of felt like we were like stepping out of what most of our friends were doing and like kind of falling out of some of the same interests while
Mm.
we followed this.
Ah, okay. And Hannah, for you, with your more scientific mind.
Yeah, I mean, it was, of course, similar because Kate and I are like, I don't know, two peas in a pod. Like our journey has been just very parallel. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like Kate said, we found yoga in college and we were in the music scene, and the music scene that we're in, it's very much like, I don't know, kind of like a hippie scene. Like people think like yoga and spirituality and stuff are cool, but it's not really like necessarily like always in like a genuine way, if that makes sense. Like I don't know. It's like the cool thing to do, but there weren't like actual like um practices or classes. Like people aren't actually meditating every day, but it was kind of um like accepted, I guess, or like that's probably we were like kind of in that space but not like in a formal way, I guess. So I think it probably like sparked the flame just because we were around it. And then I don't know, I mean, I think it was after college, and yeah, we went to that class and we started meditating every day. And then Kate started really focusing on her health. So she cut out drinking. So I think like to replace that, she turned to cacao. And so, of course, I tried it along with her. And then it just kind of like snowballed from there. But yeah, with my like going back to like what you said about my like science mind, I think that was like really a struggle for me at first. Like I've always been like spiritually curious, like even since I was little, you know, I was like I was never religious, but I was always like a deep thinker, like philosophical thinker, I guess. But then yeah, like I spent so many years being trained like as a scientist, so to like have to switch from like you know like studying these things we can't like actually study it like took me a minute, but I Kate actually recommended this book that we both read, and it did a really good job of explaining how that you know spirituality and science aren't it's not one or the other. It's more like spirituality explains the things that science just doesn't have the tools to explain, like it goes beyond the physical. So it I feel like they really just merge nicely, and it's like made me more curious if anything.
Which book was that you guys both shared and kind of opened up that world of science and spirituality?
Yeah,
What
the
was it?
title's Living in a Mindful
Mhm.
Universe, but I forget the author. Do you know it, Hannah?
um
That's okay.
oh gosh, I don't know. Yeah.
I can provide that in the
He was like,
resources.
yeah, perfect. It's the same author who wrote Proof of Heaven. So he's like a neurosurgeon who gets this bacterial infection in his brain and goes into a coma, and he has this like crazy spiritual experience, and when he comes out of it he yeah is just like determined to tell people about what he experienced and how he's now like a believer of all you know spiritual things. But it's
Mm,
cool because it's written by like a neuroscientist, so he like has both sides to kind of help like merge the two.
yeah. So I wanted to ask you guys, when you met each other in college, what do you, if you had to reflect back, what was the common denominator? Were you guys like roommates, or what attracted you to each other? Because I feel like a lot of times, our people we meet in our life, so whether it's college or work environment, or just your daily, you going to a yoga class, that you often get attracted to certain people, uh, and somehow once you start talking you realize, like, oh, like I've been through that too, or like you resonate and relate to their storyline. So I was just curious if you guys remember what that was. Was it like how you guys both were raised? It was like very similar, or what you guys were interested, or what you wanted to study. Well, actually, what you guys wanted to study is very different, but just what that draw was. And then I had also wanted to ask, and this is two separate questions, but the other question was, you mentioned the music scene. So were you both musicians and participating in gigs, like you guys sang or played the guitar, or was it more like you were participants of the music scene because you happen to be dating musicians or something?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think, well, so Hannah's best friend from high school was like my random roommate in college. So that's what connected us our freshman year. And Hannah ended up living like a few doors down in our dorm. But then eventually I moved into her dorm room, like we moved my mattress into her room. Um, but I think like what connected us and what still does is like, I mean, we have a lot of similarities when it comes to like upbringing and interests and things like that, but like we just feel like we're always on the same page. Like early on we recognized that we were just like always on the same page and like always wanted to do the same things or go to bed at a reasonable time or whatever it was. I don't know, it just felt like we always really understood each other and really got each other.
Yeah, I remember like my best friend from high school. It was like one of those websites where you like, I don't know, it's like random people, but who you like pick your roommate like through that website. And she was like, I can't do this. Like, I need you to pick my roommate. And I like picked Kate out for her. And yeah. But yeah, I don't remember. I guess I think what Kate said is like accurate. Like, we are just always on the same page. Like, I don't remember ever a moment where I was like, oh, like we really get along so well. Like it was honestly from day one, we just like never stopped hanging out. Like we just did everything together. So don't know. And
Hmm.
then the music question, no, neither of us are musicians. We're like definitely just participants of the music scene. Yeah, like we go to a lot of shows. I don't really even know how that started. I mean, I think I've always loved music. But yeah, I don't really know how that started.
Is there like a particular genre that you guys usually go to?
Yeah, so actually it started as like in college, we were really into deep house. We were both dating guys that lived in Scotland, so we were going to a lot of like clubs in Europe, and yeah, I think we really fell in love with like live music that way, or just music events that way. But then it sort of evolved, and now I feel like our main genre is like jam bands.
Oh, wait, did you just say when you were in college, you guys dated guys who were from Scotland? How did these men from Scotland end up in West Virginia?
They were actually still in Scotland. The guy that I was dating was like a partner of mine from high school, and he was from Scotland originally, and then went to my high school and moved back
Ah,
to Scotland. And whenever we were in college, so then Hannah met one of his friends, and
oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, so you did long distance relationship in college from West Virginia to Europe. That's a fun college
Yeah,
experience.
I know we would like, if we would go out and if I don't know, we'd get, guys would try to talk to us at the bar, it would always seem like we were lying. Like we'd be like, "Oh no, we like both have boyfriends, but they both live in Scotland." People were like, "What?"
Very unique. Very unique. Okay, so how did you guys? I'm assuming you're both your cacao ceremony experience. The first time you guys entered such a space, you did it together, or it was a separate experience, and then one introduced it to the other. And what was your first experience from it, and what was your takeaway that drew you guys into wanting to learn more about ceremonial grade cacao and the benefits and personally, but also from the scientific side of things.
yeah, so it was actually a little while into our journey before we actually sat in like a real cacao ceremony. So as Hannah kind of mentioned earlier, I was kind of stopping drinking and found cacao as like a replacement for that. So we would be going to see live music and we would drink cacao before. So since it was ceremonial cacao, we would just like take a moment and set our intentions for the night. Which honestly were usually pretty light and playful. Like we just wanted a lot of dancing space or we wanted to hear a specific song. But it was really quickly that we like started to feel the magic of it and like really started to feel this spirit that was like behind the scenes trying to make things happen for us. Everything always like unfolded so perfectly. So I think that really gauged our interest and we started to like use cacao then on a more personal level. Like in our daily lives. And we did a month long cacao immersion through Keys Cacao. Yeah, and I feel like we never really looked back from there and like really fell in love with like using it more as a support resource or as a tool for spiritual work and growth, along with using it in the more playful settings like live music.
What was some of your own personal experience with it that like when you share working with cacao and when you're sharing your journey about with it working with it, what do you usually tell people who are new to it in terms of your experiences or aha moments or changes or shifts in frequency after working with it?
Yeah, I think like I feel like for me the first few times that I drank it, um, like not after a ceremony, but like when we would be drinking it just kind of on our own before a show, like in the very beginning, I like didn't really feel like have a big experience with it. And it was like when we started to be more intentional, um, I don't know, I feel like it took a few times. And then it was like once we started to have those like really magical nights. I mean, I think the like really big turning point for me was like Kate said, we would have these nights where like everything just fell into place like so perfectly. Like it was like the whole night was being like divinely guided and I like was like, wait, there is like actually a real spirit here. Like this is like like I can feel that something else is like making sure we have like the best night of our lives. Like it just felt so tangible. But then when I'm talking about, that's like, you know, like the more playful side, but it really like that's what like awakened me to the spirit of cacao. And then in like my own life, I always describe it as it's like your time in the morning to like sit through what you're going through, and like to sit down and be like, okay, I have like these emotions that I need to like sit with, or I have like this thing that's been weighing on me that I like need to process. And like it's so easy to go throughout your day and like feel like, I don't know, upset or like distracted by something, and you never really find a time to like sit down and work through it. And I feel like your time with cacao is like when you have the ability to do that. And like it's like when we hold ceremony for people, it's like we're holding this circle in this space for you to like sit there with cacao and with your emotions. And I feel like cacao like holds that space for you when you're drinking it on your own. Like it's like she's like holding this little bubble for you to like yeah, process things. And I feel like for me especially, like I went through like a couple of heartbreaks like when I first started drinking cacao, and I was like waking up almost like excited because it was like, okay, now I can like deal with this heartbreak because I have this time in the morning where I can like sit down with cacao and cry, and she can hold me. And that's like it was like a like tangible time and space to like make progress on my heartbreak. I don't know. Yeah.
Mm. And Kate, for you, what was your when you worked with it, the early days? What were you kind of going through, and how did you feel that shift for you?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I was like going through a process of realizing that the long-term relationship that I was in was out of alignment for me. So it really gave me that space to actually like sit with those feelings and get clear on what it is that I wanted. And ultimately, cacao like gave me the courage to follow what was true for me and to make major life changes and do hard things, but like feel empowered and supported while doing them.
And do you find that when you guys are hosting a ceremony for others, that the sharing amongst those who are participating is kind of similar too? Like in terms of people just really staying grounded and kind of going inwards with their feelings and feeling safe to share, you know, because maybe some people don't know each other when they come to the circle.
Yeah, it always amazes me, like just where a ceremony can go. Yeah, it's just beautiful how much cacao can like open you up, and it sort of breaks down those walls or those barriers that we would normally have when interacting with others. And yeah, I do feel like there's always like a common thread of whatever the people are going through, and like we all kind of like can relate in some way or another. Yeah, it's just always such a beautiful process.
Mm. Hannah, you wanted to add on to that?
I was going to say like the same thing. um, but yeah, I'm always like so blown away by how deep it can get. Like, you know, we now mostly the ceremonies we hold are as like these like conscious pre-games before live music events, and we always, I don't know, we just expected those to be much more playful and like lighthearted and fun, you know, like it like a pregame. But surprisingly, it seems like more often than not, they are still like really deep, and people are like really sharing and opening up about their life, and crying, but like in the best way. But yeah, I think like Kate said, cacao just makes you feel like empowered because it's like you have like someone on your side there. So you feel like, I don't know, it's like you have more like strength to share what's on your heart because she's kind of like there with you and like holding you. So I think people feel more open because of that.
Mm. So when you guys decided to learn more about ceremonial grade cacao and the history and the ceremonial process and the rituals, how did you go about figuring out you know, because how should I put it? You know, I feel like this when we say ceremony or ceremony cacao ceremonies or ceremonial grade cacao, that's still very vague, I think, nowadays. You see it a lot now, and if you're in the space, right? So if there's yoga studios or festivals, but it's still quite unknown in terms of the general public. How did you figure out how to go about searching for Keats cacao, or having like someone guide you in the process, or knowing what is as ethical or the correct way to do it, and then knowing how to present it properly. I don't even know if that's the correct way to put it, because there is no proper way, right? It's just how you share it. But because actually, Hannah, we were talking about science and spirituality. I think when you talk about something like this, we tend to want to use our logical brain to package it, right? Like it's very much of like, oh yeah, we need to talk about like where the cacao is coming from, the history behind it, the benefits of it. It's just so that people could understand it, versus like, this is pure cacao from the farms in South America. Just surrender to the experience, sit down and enjoy. But oftentimes there's like all these questions, right? So yeah, Mike, I wanted to see if you guys could elaborate more on figuring that out and kind of doing that research. And yeah.
Yeah, so I found Keith's Cacao, which is where we all did our training through, pretty early in my journey. I was just kind of looking online for cacao and found that Keith Wilson of Keith's Cacao would do online cacao ceremonies. So I started joining those on my own, just like they were virtual. And yeah, fell in love with him. He was such a character, and just really fell in love with like that ceremony space. And yeah, that was kind of early in my journey of like really deepening my personal relationship with cacao. So then it was kind of just always on my radar that I wanted to do the training through them. I think Hannah and I are both like uh, I don't know, we care about like education and research and things like that. So I think we both kind of knew that we would want to do the training if we were going to be like leading ceremonies frequently. Yeah, so that's kind of like what led us there.
Yeah, and then I feel like for the ceremonies themselves, I don't know, I don't want to say we were like lucky because that's not the right word, but I feel like we just like had really good like inclination of what to do. Like I don't know, I think we just like really like do it from our hearts. And I mean, we do like, I think we went into our first one and we were like, okay, let's talk like briefly about what cacao is, and then let's like, logistically, then we'll like Hannah will do a meditation and Kate will pour the cacao during the meditation, and then like I don't know, when I tap you, you'll start the cacao blessing. So we like had like some logistics planned out. But I don't know. I think like our best ceremonies are when we like aren't as scripted. Like in the beginning, I think because we were more nervous, we had more of like a script of like what we wanted to say. And like our best ceremonies are definitely when we're just like really speaking from our heart, and like really like uh customizing it to like how people in the circle are feeling. Like I don't know, sometimes I might go into it thinking like, oh, I'm going to do this meditation, but if we like check in with the group and they're all feeling like not in alignment with the meditation I was like going to do, then like you have to be able to like switch it on the spot. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. uh I wanted to ask, what would you tell people who are new to this in terms of seeking out a ceremony? Um is it like through online, or if someone is hosting something, like how to encourage them to go try it out, because every facilitator does it differently, based on their own personal energy. And some people like to do it with breath work, some people like to do it the meditation or ecstatic dance and yoga. So what would you say to people who are curious to learn more, and also how to find their ingredients? Because I think sometimes it's like easier to just tell people like, oh yeah, it's like basically drinking like a cup of chocolate milk, but it's not chocolate milk. but it's still chocolate, right? Like, how do you, for them to find, yeah, the purest form of ceremonial grade cacao. So not just 100% pure cacao.
Yeah, I think in terms of finding a ceremony, I don't know. I mean, I think probably just like try different ones until you find a facilitator and like a, community that resonates with you. I think definitely do them in person if you can, because especially in the beginning, because I think it takes a while to learn how to make cacao. So if you're like only making it at home on your own, I don't know, it's a process to figure out how to make it. So I think it's always good to like try it in person. Plus the energy is just so much more potent when you're sitting with people in person. Um, yeah, and then the ingredients, like to find the most pure ceremonial cacao, I don't know. I mean, I think again, just like trying different ones and seeing what resonates with you, because I don't know, I think like they all have such a different energy, like different brands, but even like different harvests within different brands. I don't know. Kate, do you have any other thoughts?
Um, Yeah, no, I agree. Like definitely just play around and try them. There are so many out there. But I guess just like read up on the website. I don't know. There's no official certification that makes something ceremonial grade. So I would just like sort of read up and make sure that it's coming from like native farms and they're treating it with love and respect, and um, maybe find a smaller company if you can, just because it might be closer to the source. But yeah, I think ultimately just play around and feel into what feels good to you.
Have you guys experienced other ceremonial grade cacao that you do feel like it doesn't work the same magic that some of these other brands do, and like you feel it when you drink it?
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I've worked with a few that felt like a bit more like caffeine-y, like intense and jittery and not so grounding. So even though while I like felt the effects really strongly, it wasn't necessarily in a way that I prefer. Like I definitely prefer more of like a subtle openness and a grounding feeling to the cacao. Yeah, I've also had some from like bigger sort of corporation brands that just felt like they were like more processed, like they came in sort of a more processed form of like really smooth and clearly had been tempered. So throughout that process, like some of the psychoactive properties are removed and nutrients are removed. So um, yeah, those just didn't even have as much of a feeling at all compared to others.
Were you going to add on,
Yeah.
Hannah?
Yeah, I was gonna say the exact same thing. And I had the same thought, like if you can find cacao that comes in like a block or a brick, or even like if it does come in the flakes, just as long as they're like still kind of raw, like not, sometimes they come in like really smooth discs. And just like, the more smooth it is, like the more processed it is, so it probably won't be as potent.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a helpful way to gauge what you're buying and what you're working with and using. Um, I wanted to, I feel like there's so many other questions we can dive into regarding cacao ceremonies. And then also just, how you guys work with it and your personal journeys and growth. I wanted to ask, how do you guys drink it every day? How you work with it now compared to how you worked with it early on. So like personally, I think for me, like when we were doing the course together online last year, I was drinking it every day, but I've kind of weaned it out. Like I don't work with it every day as much as I did earlier on. And I was just curious for you guys if you go through phases as well. There's periods of time where you're working with it every day, and then maybe there's periods of time where you're like, yeah, just every Sunday, or just when you guys do your ceremonies. And also on top of that, how do you choose to facilitate your ceremonies? Is it just whenever there is a music event and they ask for you to facilitate an opening before their performance, or is it during the full moon? Like, how do you guys decide how often you carry the ceremonies?
Yeah, I think we both go are like the exact same how you just said that you go through phases. Yeah, in the beginning I was definitely drinking it every day. Right now I'm not. Right now I maybe drink it, I don't know, on the weekends or, if I have like a longer morning and I have time to actually sit with it. But yeah, I definitely go through phases. And like yesterday I mentally really wanted to drink cacao and then I made it and my body just like did not want it, so I didn't finish drinking it. So I think like your body just really tells you if you want it or not. Um yeah, and then I don't know how we decide when we have ceremonies. I mean, I think it is usually just when there are the music events for the bands that either like want the ceremony, or if the fan base of that band is receptive to a ceremony, then we'll hold one. And then we still do like random like local events, like we'll do like cacao and sound journeys, and those are just when we can get them on the schedule. Um, yeah.
Kate, do you want to add on or?
Um, I don't have too much to add, but yeah, I think to what you were saying about like frequency of drinking it or whatever. Like I think when you're first starting to build that relationship with cacao, it's almost necessary to drink it like almost daily. Like it really helps you to like get to know it and feel into the energetics and like really build that relationship. But then yeah, once that relationship is established, I think it can just be more of like an intuitive or when you're really feeling it
Mm.
basis.
Mm. Do you guys participate in other people's ceremonies?
We have there. I feel like I really haven't much lately.
Yeah, and not like on, it's not intentional. I think we're just like so busy. And also like haven't I guess we haven't really like networked with like fellow cacao facilitators like in our area. So yeah, we haven't really much, but I would like to, because like you said, people like the way you hold a ceremony is so different. So I think it would be like fun to see how what other people are doing.
Yeah, I think at the beginning we kind of like intentionally didn't want to have too much like external input because we wanted to like create our own process that felt true to us and that was really coming from the heart. So we didn't really want to like look at what other people were doing too much. But now I feel like we're in a place where we absolutely could be like soaking in all the ceremonies we can find.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue, Kate, because I wanted to ask how you guys decided to intentionally create together as where it is today, as a business. To go all in with this, to feel that it's so powerful and you want to share it with more people, not just in your community in Colorado, but also abroad, because you guys have been traveling as well and conducting this internationally. So, what came about with that idea between the two of you to be like, yes, we're going to facilitate cacao ceremonies on top of meditation, etc.?
I think it was pretty organic. Like it wasn't really like I don't know, we didn't really like have that thought and then we like went and sought out the trainings and like built the business in that way. It was more like, I don't know, like Kate mentioned like earlier on, I think we both knew that we wanted to do something, like we felt like we were meant to do something that was more fulfilling. We like knew we wanted to create something together, but we never knew what it was. Like we'd always be like, when we did really get into meditation, we were like, knew meditation would maybe be a part of it, and we thought like something with like helping people like live with more awareness or like more consciousness, but we never really knew what it was. And then we were like, or probably something in the music scene, because that's like where we spend all of our time. um but it was just like all these like random little pulls, and we had no idea how that would actually like come to fruition. And then I don't know, we both did our meditation teacher training. So we started teaching meditation just like at a local studio or like online. But that was just like meditation classes. And then I don't know. So then I guess that was probably how we like initially were like, oh, maybe we'll like create our own business to lead meditation classes rather than like doing it through a studio. We'll like create our own business and do it online. But then when we started bringing cacao, we would drink cacao before shows, and like in this scene, a lot of people go and they'll like line up all day to get like a good spot in the venue for the concert. So we would bring our cacao to the line, like other people, were drinking or doing whatever else. And people would be like, "What are you drinking? Like, what is cacao?" And eventually, enough people were interested that we had like a very informal ceremony. Like we just all like sat around on yoga mats and we like made people cacao when we were camping for this like one music festival. And it like went really well. Like we saw people like connecting so deeply, like people who had just met were like talking about their like, I don't know, experience, like relationships that they have with their like mothers. Like it was such a like cool thing to watch these people connect. And then like later on in the day, we'd have people come up to us and they'd be like, oh, like, I don't know, I lost my phone charger and then someone gave me back a phone charger. Like, was that Mama Cacao? And we were like, oh yeah, like that is her. Anyways, I'm getting like way off track, but I think then after that we realized like, okay, enough people want to drink cacao before a show. So we held our first ceremony before a show. And then I guess like, I don't know when we like founded together in the midst of all that, but I guess it just kind of like organically unfolded.
It was Mama Cacao.
Yeah.
She provided the light and the path.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always joke because like randomly if we'll do a cacao ceremony for a band before they go on stage, like they'll take a mug on stage with cacao in it. We just always joke that like she just like wanted to be up there on stage and she's like making this all happen for us because she just wants to be like a star.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
fun. Quick question, because I'm going to wrap up soon, but one more question. Well, actually, I have a few more questions, but this one is more to summarize some of the other things we were talking about. But could you share with us the difference between, ceremonial cacao and other psychedelics that are out there? Because it is a plant-based medicine, and in that sector there's a lot, right? I mean, a lot of people will then go into like shrooms and ayahuasca and this and that. So when that conversation comes up for you guys, usually how do you in a nutshell summarize the difference and benefits of cacao in that in that category of all these other plant-based medicine that people use to heal in various shapes and form?
Yeah, so yeah, like you're saying, cacao is a plant medicine, and there are those other stronger plant medicines like mushrooms and ayahuasca. And similarly, they have spirits, like a spirit of ayahuasca that you work with as well. But overall, it's just like a completely different experience. So, as you mentioned, cacao is not psychedelic. So, it's not actually changing the way like we're perceiving things or like the way we're seeing things. Like you don't hallucinate. It's way more subtle. So yeah, it's just a more grounding, a more subtle experience. Like we sometimes compare it to the intensity of drinking a cup of coffee. So yeah, just a much more subtle, a much more grounding experience. It's sometimes said that like the spirit of cacao will like take you to the doorway of what it is that you need to work through or what it is that you need to see, but like you ultimately have the choice of whether you go through that
Yeah.
door, where some other plant medicines are like kicking you through the door and closing it on you. um, so yeah, I just feel like it's much more gentle, it's much more welcoming. And yeah, it's like it's something that I would serve to my mother, or
Yeah.
anyone at all. I feel like it's way more accessible.
Hmm. Have you either of you experienced some of the other stronger psychedelic plant-based medicine?
Yeah, we have. And they're very beautiful and absolutely have a place for like on your healing journey. But yeah, I think we both just really love the subtleness of cacao and the fact that you still feel very sober, but also feel like the support and like, yeah, like you're ultimately getting to do some of the deep inner work, but without the intensity of some of the other plant medicines.
Mm. And Hannah, from a scientific point of view, how do you, yeah, how would you answer that question?
I don't know if I know from a scientific point of view how to answer it. Actually, what I'm about to say is like totally not scientific at all. um, but yeah, I don't know. I think cacao is also a good alternative. Like, so Kate and I do both have experience with other plant medicines, but I think we also got to a point where like maybe it wasn't really like our for us anymore, or like it just like sometimes they can be so intense that they're like really intimidating. And so I think cacao is like a good alternative because you are still getting, like Kate said, that really deep inner work, but she's like so much more approachable and accessible. Like I was just explaining to someone how like, for example, like I think ayahuasca and like some of the other like spirits are more like they're really like esoteric and like ethereal and like really intimidating and like hard to know and like scary to know. Like you're like drawn to them and you like want to listen to them, but you're also like so terrified, and like they're just like kind of hard to grasp. Whereas I feel like we always joke that like Mama Cacao is this like, you know, curvy, busty, like woman who's just like gives like the best hugs, and she's like so welcoming and like easy to know. So I feel like it's like a good way to get to like know, like understand like how these substances can have a spirit. Like she's like really easy to know versus like the other ones can be like more difficult and scary to know. I don't know.
Mm,
So
mm.
again, not scientific at all, but that's my experience.
uh, that's okay, but I think that's true. It's it's a more like mothering, nurturing space to feel that warmth. Whereas some of the other uh, yeah, some of the other medicines are more of a, you've heard all these things, you're curious, you want to try, but you go into it still with a sense of maybe like anxiousness because you're not sure how you're going to react to it. Whereas cacao is really like a, yeah, like a big powwow, like like a bah humbug experience where you're just like, the space is so warmly decorated, it's very warm, you know, the very soothing. And when you walk in and you get invited, and then it's like a warm cup of tea, you know, I mean, like it feels like that, or a warm cup of coffee, whatever you prefer, or like a hot chocolate. Yeah, it's very easy to kind of let your guard down and feel safe. I think that's exactly how you described it. So I always ask my guests three questions before we say goodbye from you know, wrap up the conversation. So you guys can choose who wants to answer first. But the first question is, what keeps you grounded? But maybe this is something that, you know, I could probably answer because we've talked about it for the last hour, which is meditation and cacao. But maybe there is something else for you guys that you do that you feel keeps you grounded. Like maybe you guys like going out for a long run, or I don't know, talking to each other for an hour every day is what keeps you guys grounded.
Yeah, I think in addition to cacao and meditation, nature keeps us grounded. Yeah, just being able to like sit in the sun or go on a long hike or just put your feet on the earth. I think that's like one of my favorite ways to ground.
Hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think having each other like through this journey too like really helps to stay grounded. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, second question is, what resources would you give to others, um, that you feel that have helped you guys along your own journeys, right? So I think you mentioned, that book, Living in the Mind of the Universe. Are there other books or podcasts or mentors and teachers that you've come across over the course of your journey thus far that you usually reference to other people? If other people who come up to you maybe during a meditation class or a cacao ceremony who are going through different things, perhaps that you're like, oh, well, you should look into this book or this podcast because I found it very helpful for yourself, that you would share with others.
For me was this app called Insight Timer. It's there are a lot of guided meditations on it, but I think like that's like the main thing we recommend to people who are starting out their meditation journey, or just want to make it more consistent, because it has a timer, so you can like set your timer for 10 minutes, and there are like nice like gong chimes to bring you out of the meditation, but it also keeps stats for you, so it'll tell you like how many days in a row you meditated, which can be like really motivating because you don't want to break your streak, so then you're motivated to keep meditating every day.
Is
Yeah.
there a particular facilitator on the Insight app that you both listen to regularly, or because there are so many options on Insight Timer? Which person should they look up to begin their meditation journey?
I really like Sarah Blond. I think Blondin is her last name, but really I feel like I use it more. I usually just use the timer. I don't do too many guided ones on there anymore, but I do like how the guided ones are categorized. Um, like if you want one for sleep, or one for, I don't know, to manifest your soulmate, or like whatever, they're like categorized in different ways.
Do you have any?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I I don't really. It's been a while since I've done guided ones on the app, but I do just love using the timer, and like being able to see my stats and everything. Um, and then the other thing that I was going to offer as a resource, I think one of our favorite tools in our ceremonies is using like oracle cards. I feel like it's such a good way to kind of like get a message from the universe, and like tune into what it means to you using your intuition and receive guidance. Our favorite oracle deck is the Animal Spirit deck by the Wild Unknown.
Hmm. Okay. I agree. I use them too. I find them very helpful. It's a great way to kind of conclude and also keep people thinking whether the intention they started with before the ceremony and how they end matches, because oftentimes it does match the messaging with how they're feeling, right? And so that opens up a whole other discussion. It's almost kind of like going into a therapy session, but you're doing the work yourself. It's not, well, how
Yeah.
is leading you to do the work, but it's not like sitting with a therapist where the therapist is, you know, having a dialogue with you directly. You're actually having a dialogue with yourself, which is the most important part of inner work, right? Okay, so that's the resource question. Then the last one is, what would you tell your younger self what you know now? Or another way to put that question is, for those listening to this episode and resonate with your story and your journey and experience, what's your 2 cents for those listening to this episode?
I would say to trust yourself, to know that you have value, and like the things that you're passionate in and care about. Yeah, that you can follow those and that you can share them, and I'm sure that they'll add value to others.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar, like just follow, I don't know, like whatever pull that you're feeling, like even if you don't know, like if you can't pinpoint, like how will these things tie together? Like how can I actually make a business out of this? Like if you just like follow those little pulls that you feel, like it will just unfold eventually.
Trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So I don't have any more questions for you two. I don't know if you guys wanted to add on anything else, like any last minute words, but I will put your website and your social media on the episode resources list below this episode so people can look up all the different things you guys provided. And you have online you guys have online meditation classes as well, right? So if people are interested, they can sign up for it. And yeah, and then maybe if they're in your area, they can meet you in person as well. So I want to thank both of you. This is actually maybe like our fifth time meeting, I guess, right? Because we did a few sessions when we did the course together. But yeah, but it's so funny how the universe works, doesn't it? It's like
Yeah.
and maybe hopefully I can meet you guys in person one day too.
Yeah, that would be so
Yes, that would be
nice.
amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing and opening up the audience to the world of cacao. And thank you for also providing us with a little mini session earlier as well. So thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for
thank you
having us,
so
Jenn.
much.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to Curito Connects. For more Connects content, collaborations, and discoveries set to inspire you on your own individual journey, please head to our website at www.curito.co. Until next time, stay inspired and thank you for joining us at Curito Connects.